This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the lab room.
The views and opinions shared on this program are that of Louie Tee and In the Lab Room alone, and should be taken exactly as they are given. If you are soft, easily offended, or can't listen to the criticism of your team, this program is not intended for you. This is pure, unadulterated football talk for the hardcore fan. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 2014 NFL Lab Reports. Today we're talking about the Green Bay Packers. Go, Pack, go! So we're taking a trip to Wisconsin to see if the Green Bay Packers can continue their dominance over the NFC North. It's the 2014 NFL Lab Report of the Green Bay Packers. Strengths for the Green Bay Packers. And you look at this team and you go straight to the offense. And last year, not having Aaron Rodgers in the lineup for the majority of the season showed me a lot about this team. It showed me a lot about the poise and the character of not only the football team, but the head coach and this organization. They did not panic. It was almost foreshadowing what happened in the preseason last year. Remember, the Packers went through backup quarterback after backup quarterback. They brought in Vince Young, and they had Seneca Wallace, and they really didn't know what they were going to do at the backup quarterback position, and they settled in on Seneca Wallace. And they had Scott Tolzien in the mix as well. And when Seneca Wallace had to assume the role of starting quarterback as Aaron Rodgers went down against the Bears, Seneca Wallace got injured himself, and Scott Tolzien entered the game, and he struggled. But the Packers did not panic. They went out. They got lucky now. This was a very fortunate twist of fate for the Packers, as Matt Flynn struggled in Oakland, so much so that they cut him loose in the middle of the season. They were able to go out, snatch him up, bring him in, a guy that's familiar with the playbook. So really didn't need a lot of time to reacclimate himself to Green Bay. He just came in and was ready to go. And he was able to steady the ship and keep it afloat until Aaron Rodgers was able to come back in Week 17 and save the day against the Chicago Bears. And if you look at this team statistically across the board, they were still really good offensively. Especially in the passing game. I was surprised to look at their numbers and see just how adept they were at getting it done across the board. You would think with about 4 different quarterbacks either starting or having played in the 2013 season for this Packers team that they would have struggled offensively from a passing standpoint. And because of the struggles of the quarterback position, you would expect the rushing game to have struggled. But it was actually an adverse effect. The running game carried the offense, opened up the passing game because teams had to focus in on stopping Eddie Lacy and his rushing attack. And they were able to throw the football, and guys stepped up. Jordy Nelson stepped up. James Jones helped you out. You had guys get it done. Randall Cobb was injured a lot last year as well. So the Packers showed their depth. They showed the ability to get it done on the offensive end. Even in the face of adversity, this Packers team got it done offensively. That's the mark of a good football team. That's the mark of a rock-solid strength. And that's exactly what this offense is for the Green Bay Packers. You look at another strength, and I think, speaking of the offense, the reason why it's such a core strength of this Packers team is because of two men. Head coach Mike McCarthy and starting quarterback Aaron Rodgers. They're definitely a strength of this football team. Mike McCarthy, to me, might be the second best in-game adjustment head coach in the league, behind Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton does a magnificent job of seeing what the defense is trying to do and making adjustments to counter what the defense is trying to do. So I think Mike McCarthy is right there in that discussion. He is one of those coaches that understands the X's and O's of the game very well and understands what teams are trying to do to his team and how to combat that. And I think he puts his team in the best position to win on a weekly basis, more so than a lot of the coaches in this league. I think he's a really, really good head coach. I really think that, some coaches, their best attribute is being able to galvanize 53 men for one common goal. And then you have head coaches that are X's and O's guys that you put them up at the chalkboard and they can explain how plays are supposed to work and what you have to do to make them work. And then you have coaches that can do both. And I think Mike McCarthy is one of those rare breed of coaches that not only can take 53 players and have them run through a brick wall for him, but also in the same breath, get up to the chalkboard and explain a play and show guys where they're supposed to be to execute the play to its full potential. And so, for me, Mike McCarthy is a core strength of this team because he is a great leader for this football team. And Aaron Rodgers, to me, I won't be bashful, and I state this all the time. He's the best quarterback in the league to me, hands down. I love Peyton Manning and what he does and all the things that Tom Brady has done throughout his Hall of Fame career. And Drew Brees is cerebral and he's pinpoint accurate. But to me, the total package, nobody possesses that total package that I'm looking for at the quarterback position, more so than Aaron Rodgers. Now, there are some things that he can work on in his game. Is he the most clutch quarterback? No. If you ask me who I want to give the football to with 2 minutes left in the game, no timeouts, and 97 yards of real estate in front of them, I'd run off a series of quarterbacks before I get to Aaron Rodgers. So he's not the guy that I want in the later stages of the game when I need to come back and get a W. But you ask me who I want with the football to lead my team on a drive from quarters 1 through 3, I'll tell you Aaron Rodgers all day long, and I'll take him in the fourth quarter too. Just I won't take him with 2 minutes left in the game necessarily before I take some other guys. But you ask me who's going to get it done, who possesses the ability to scramble, to make things happen with his legs, to throw pinpoint accurate darts on the move, who has the arm strength to zip it in there, who throws the tightest spiral in the league. All of the answers to those questions is the same guy. It's Aaron Rodgers. And so give me Aaron Rodgers every day of the week. And you saw just how much he meant to this team last year when he got injured. They had no business winning this division. They won it because of the inability of the other teams in this division to really seize the opportunity that was in front of them. But this Packers team struggled mightily in the absence of Aaron Rodgers. His value alone was gauged last season when he was injured. And you see that he is a primary strength of this Green Bay Packers football team. And without him, this Packers team is nowhere near the force that they are with him in the lineup. And another strength of this team, and it's more of an honorable mention, is the running game. Eddie Lacy has infused this Packers rushing attack with something that they haven't had in a very, very long time, and that is consistency. The Packers, for the longest time, went without a 100-yard rusher. Had not had one in a game in over 2 seasons and some change. That ended in week 2 last year against the Washington Redskins, where they were able to get over 100 yards. Then they started to see the consistency flowing from that rushing attack, and it all starts with Eddie Lacy. He is their new bell cow. He's the guy that they're going to turn to get the running game off the ground. And then they hand it to James Starks, and Dajuan Harris has proven to be a solid backup as well. They've got something going on the ground, and it's because of Eddie Lacy and his ability to make things happen in the running game. It's going to open up different avenues for this passing game. Now this backfield doesn't look that bad in Green Bay. If guys can stay healthy, James Starks, Dajuan Harris, and Eddie Lacy have this Green Bay Packers rushing attack looking like a serious strength of this football team. You move on from the strengths of this Green Bay Packers team to their weaknesses. You want to cut the Green Bay Packers some slack last year when talking about weaknesses because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers wasn't in the lineup. But then I said to myself, wait a minute, Self? Does Aaron Rodgers play defense? I said, no, he didn't play defense. So then I said to myself, well, one of these weaknesses probably could be attributed to Aaron Rodgers. It could be a direct correlation. And that's 45 sacks surrendered by this Green Bay Packers offensive line. Now, granted, we've seen this Packers offensive line struggle in the past. And they always seem to be dealing with injuries, and that is the case already in 2014. But Aaron Rodgers has among the quickest release in the National Football League. So you'd like to think that those 45 sacks that were surrendered last year by this offensive line would have come down exponentially if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. Not only is he mobile, but his release is lightning quick. And so you expect him to probably be able to get out of some tight jams that a guy like Matt Flynn couldn't get out of, or Seneca Wallace, or even Scott Tolzien might have been able to get out of. Aaron Rodgers is that type of quarterback that he can escape and extend plays and make things happen even when nothing's there. So maybe he's not sacked a couple of times because of that. And then going through his progressions, he knows the offense like the back of his hand, getting the football out of his hands quickly. You've got to think that he would have avoided a few more sacks just because of his knowledge of the playbook and his ability to get the football out of his hands quickly. So I'd like to think that 45 might be a little of a reach if Aaron Rodgers is in the lineup. But then again, you never know. So I'd like to take that one with a grain of salt, but it's still a weakness. It's still something that they had an issue with a season ago, something that they need to clean up in 2014. And then you look at the defense, and they struggled last year. And can some of this be attributed to Aaron Rodgers and his injury? Maybe. Maybe if the offense is more proficient, maybe if the offense is scoring more points, maybe this defense isn't on the field as much, maybe this defense isn't as bad, maybe the Packers have the lead more often and teams have to throw the football more so than be able to run it. Maybe all of those things come into play. At the end of the day, it does not matter. As a defense, you can't worry about what's going on the other side of the field. All you can do is take care of your own business, and the Packers defense didn't do that last season. They didn't. They just simply failed to do so. And they struggled stopping the run. They were one of 8 teams to give up 2,000 yards rushing. They gave up 4.6 yards per carry, which is way too much. And they struggled stopping the pass as well. So this Packers team, they struggled in every avenue imaginable on the defensive side of the football. 30 touchdowns given up, only 11 interceptions, a passer rating of 96. That's not going to get it done in this league enough for you to feel like you can take it to that next level. If you're giving up touchdown passes, again, you know how this goes. Points come through the passing game in the National Football League, and you gave up 30 last year, which is a very robust amount. Got to clean that up. And only 11 interceptions, which means you didn't make quarterbacks pay for testing your secondary. So this Packers defense struggled a season ago. Some of it could be attributed to the loss of Aaron Rodgers. Some of it could be attributed to the fact that this Packers team just didn't get it done. And they've got to be better in 2014. You move on from the weaknesses of this Green Bay Packers team to, of course, camp battles. As you see behind me, I have the assistance of my big board. Camp battles on this side, the experiment on the other. We will start with the camp battles in Green Bay first. And there are a few positions that need to be discussed. You start with the quarterback situation in Green Bay. Again, thankfully, the question isn't surrounding your starting quarterback position this year. It's centered around your backup situation. And let's run down this list quickly. Aaron Rodgers, Matt Flynn, Scott Tolzien. This is a group led by Aaron Rodgers. And you're hoping that we don't even have to discuss the backup quarterbacks this season. With as many problems and issues as you had at the backup quarterback position last year, you're hoping that this isn't something that we need to talk about this year because Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. But in the event that something were to occur and Aaron Rodgers were to go down, the question then becomes, do the Packers keep 3 quarterbacks or 2 quarterbacks? Who's going to be the backup and who's going to be the odd man out if the Packers decide to keep 2? And if they keep 3, then who's the guy? So, situation right now looks like this. Matt Flynn is a guy that you trust. And to me, even though Scott Tolzien possesses better arm strength, more mobility and athleticism, and is a kid that you saw on the field last year and you feel really good about now because he's a year better and a year smarter in your offense, Matt Flynn just gets it as a backup in Green Bay. I don't think Matt Flynn could play anywhere else in this league except for Green Bay. But when he's in Green Bay, he does an admirable job of filling in. And so, to me, Matt Flynn has to be the backup quarterback. Even though you may like what Scott Tolzien is doing, Matt Flynn has proven that he can get it done as the backup in Green Bay. Scott Tolzien has not. Now, the only way you can prove anything is if you're given the opportunity to. But I feel like this. If I'm the Packers, I just need to feel comfortable about my backup situation. I'm not looking for upside because Aaron Rodgers is the guy I want on the field anyway. So I'm not looking for upside. I'm not looking for anything other than a guy that I trust. And Matt Flynn is exactly that. If Aaron Rodgers goes down for 4 weeks, I know Matt Flynn can go 2-2. I know Matt Flynn can go 3-1. And depending on the slate of games, he can go 4-0. I don't know about Scott Tolzien. We saw him struggle last year. So if it's up to me, if I'm the Packers, there's no way Matt Flynn is not on this roster when it's all said and done. Now, the question then becomes, do you keep Scott Tolzien in addition to Matt Flynn? That's up for you to decide. If you feel like you have enough openings on this roster to keep an extra quarterback, knock yourself out. I don't see the need to, however. Aaron Rodgers is not like he's coming off of an ACL injury and he's injury prone. He doesn't miss a lot of games. I don't expect him to get injured again. And Matt Flynn should be there to back him up. I say you go with 2 quarterbacks, and if Scott Tolzien lands somewhere else, it's been nice. But if I'm the Packers, that's how I handle this situation. You move on to the wide receiver position. Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, Jarrett Boykins, Devontae Adams, Jeff Janis, and Kevin Dorsey are the 6 receivers vying, I think, for 5 roster spots. Now, this is a no-brainer. Of all the guys that I just mentioned, Kevin Dorsey, he's the guy that doesn't belong in that group. But here's the situation. Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson are your starters. Jarrett Boykins, in the absence of Randall Cobb last year, stepped up tremendously. He was absolutely magnificent in his duties last season. So he has solidified himself as a Green Bay Packer wide receiver. And I think his emergence last year made it okay for a guy like James Jones to hit the bricks. So now you go out, draft Devontae Adams out of Fresno State. You draft Jeff Janis, another guy that you didn't expect to have to play this year. You know, young kid, 7th round, Saginaw Valley State, had no intentions of him hitting the field this year. He was supposed to be learning. He was supposed to be on a practice squad. But because of an ACL tear to Jared Abadaris, who was definitely going to contribute to this team in 2014, he's now on the IR, and a guy like Jeff Janis, who is very raw, but has speed and potential. We saw that touchdown that he had in week 2 of the preseason. He's going to get an opportunity to make this roster and learn from some guys like Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and get better at his craft, all the while learning the playbook and learning the speed of this game. Now, Kevin Dorsey is an interesting guy because if he were to make this team, it would be for special teams only. He's a special team standout. However, can the Packers afford to keep a guy just off of special teams merit alone? I don't know how the rest of this roster is going to shake out and if they have the flexibility to be able to do that. If they keep 6, then Dorsey's your man. He'll be on as a special team standout. If they keep 5, he's out and you keep it moving. You look at the tight end position. Richard Rodgers, Andrew Quarles, Brandon Bostic, Ryan Taylor, and Jake Stoneburner. Now, this is a situation where the Packers are keeping 4 tight ends. But Richard Rodgers has won the starting tight end job. I was amazed when I watched the 3rd preseason game and I saw this guy, first snap of the game, catching a tight end pop across the middle and running for about 25, 30 yards and saying to myself, this is the 2nd week in a row I've seen a lot of Richard Rodgers early on. And so that led me to believe that Andrew Quarles was beat out, and he has been beat out essentially for the starting tight end gig in Green Bay. But nonetheless, Quarles is on this roster. Brandon Bostic was a guy that was going to compete to start as well and get a lot of snaps. But he injured himself. He's going to be out for a little while. So that opens the door for a guy like Jake Stoneburner. Ryan Taylor is a tight end that is a really good blocker and an excellent special teams player. That's what's going to keep him around on this roster. However, Jake Stoneburner isn't quite the special teams player, isn't quite the blocking tight end, but his athleticism will make up and fill in for the void that will be left by Brandon Bostic not being on this roster initially because of the injury. So if the Packers decide to bring Jake Stoneburner along because of the athleticism and his catching ability in the passing game until Bostic comes back, then that will keep this tight end group at 4, possibly 5, if they decide that we'll be fine without Bostic for the first couple of weeks until he is able to nurse himself back to health. Then Stoneburner will be the odd man out. Either way you slice it, Jake Stoneburner isn't going to be on this roster for the entire season. The question is, will he be on the roster initially to start the season out to help them until Bostic comes back, or will he be relegated to the practice squad immediately after not making the team? You go on to the offensive line, and this is a group that always is in flux in Green Bay. David Bakhtiari, Josh Sitton, J.C. Treader, T.J. Long, Brian Balaga, Derek Sherrod, Corey Linsley, Lane Taylor, and Don Barclay. Now, the biggest blow to this offensive line has come at the center position. Don Barclay, your penciled in starter for this group, got injured. He's gone for the season. So you cross him off this list. Then you look at a situation where the next guy in line to take his place, J.C. Treader, has injured himself as well. Could be out as long as 6 weeks. So now, all of a sudden, you're a rookie right here in Corey Linsley, a guy that you had no intentions of playing this year. You just wanted him to be on the roster and learn out of Ohio State. Now he has to play. He didn't have a choice. He's the next man up. And so whether he's playing good at football or not, I don't think he's going to be your starter all season long. I think when J.C. Treader is healthy enough to play, he'll assume the role of starting center. But make no mistake about it, the Packers have been thrusted into a tough spot now that Corey Linsley is going to have to man it up at the center position. So this is a group that is always ever changing, and they've already had to endure changes so young in this 2014 season already. Let's see how they're able to adapt to having a new center in Green Bay. You look at the linebacker position, and this is a pretty hefty haul right here. They could keep as many as 11, yes, 11 linebackers in Green Bay. And I'll explain why this number is so lofty here in a second. But let's run down this list quickly. Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, A.J. Hawk, Brad Jones, Nick Perry, Mike Neal, Jamari Lattimore, Nate Palmer, Sam Barrington, Andy Malumba, and Jaron Elliott. Now, Jaron Elliott is an interesting case because he had no business being in the discussion of making this roster. He was an afterthought coming into training camp. But because of his stellar play, and you can never have enough sacks in this league. Never. You can never have enough pressure. Okay? There's two things that you can never have enough of. You can have enough quality offensive linemen. You can have enough quality receivers. You can never have enough quality corners, and you can never have enough quality pass rushers in this league. Those are the two positions where you're like, hey, if this guy's that good, I'll keep 6 instead of 5 because you just got to have this guy on the roster. Same thing with pass rushers. You'll keep an extra body at defensive end or outside linebacker if the guy is getting it done because you can never have enough of those. Those are positions of premium in this league. You know, as the offensive line is concerned, you only need 5 of those guys. You know, if those 5 stay healthy, then you're fine. At corner, you're always going to be platooning corners in and out of the game. You need guys. Guys are going to get injured at the cornerback position. You need depth. Same thing with the defensive line. If you can have 4 guys on the field all at once, somewhat like the Seattle Seahawks did with that NASCAR unit, where you could put 4 guys on the field at once that can all get to the quarterback and apply pressure, the more the merrier. And so 11 linebackers isn't out of the realm of possibility in Green Bay. And a guy like Jaron Elliott has come in and he has lit it up in preseason. Got 3 sacks in one game, another sack against the Raiders. So he's shown that, hey, I can get pressure in this league. Now, you would like to have seen those sacks come against elite level talent and elite level left and right tackles because, again, in this league, there is a huge drop-off between starting tackles and backup tackles a lot of times. However, hey, a sack's a sack's a sack, a sack. Look, all I ask is that you dominate the competition that we put in front of you. And that's what he's done to this point, so much so that now he's on the cusp of making this roster as a long shot, undrafted rookie free agent out of Toledo. So he adds to this list. Then B.J. Raji has gotten injured, torn his bicep, gone for the season. I don't know if the Packers are necessarily going to add another defensive lineman in his absence. I think what they're actually going to do is say, hey, we've got versatility along our linebacking core. We've got some guys that can stick their hands in the dirt and be both outside linebackers as well as 5 techniques for us. We don't necessarily need to get another guy and bring him onto this roster. How about we just keep the linebackers that we like so much, and a guy like Julius Peppers, for instance, he can put his hand in the dirt as a 5 technique and set the edge in the run game and still get pressure on the quarterback. And then he can pick his hand up out of the dirt in passing situations and be a 3-4 outside linebacker and help you get pressure that way, or in nickel situations. I mean, you have flexibility there because of guys like Julius Peppers, and even a guy like Clay Matthews can do the same thing too. So not saying that you necessarily want to do that, but you have guys that you feel comfortable doing that with. So the necessity to bring in another defensive lineman might not be as great. So you might actually only keep 5 defensive linemen and run with 11 linebackers and be able to have guys platoon in and out of the defensive line as linebackers too. So that's why this group is so deep. 11's a huge number, but every single one of these guys has a realistic shot of making this roster for the Green Bay Packers. So those are your camp battles. We move on from the camp battles to the experiment, and I have dubbed the experiment in Green Bay business as usual. Business as usual, wow, for the Green Bay Packers. Even without Aaron Rodgers, they were still able to win the division. So what do you think is going to happen now that they're at full strength? The cavalry has arrived. What do you think is going to happen now? My guess is business as usual, wow. We go to the experiment. Research question. Now that Aaron Rodgers is healthy and the Pack have a legit running game, Is the defense ready to help this Packers team regain its championship luster? That sums it up right there. Aaron Rodgers is back. Eddie Lacy and his running game is legit. Is the defense ready to jump on board and help this team get back to the Super Bowl? That's all you really need to know. That's the questions that I have for this Packers team right there. Hypothesis. If the offense is business as usual and the defense kicks it into high gear, then the Green Bay Packers will win the NFC North. It starts winning the division. That's where it all starts with this Green Bay Packers team. Winning your division, right? Getting a great seeding in the NFC playoffs. That's the next goal after you win your division. Put yourself in a position where maybe you don't have to go to Seattle. Nobody wants to go to Seattle. I can't stress that enough. Nobody wants to go to Seattle. Nobody. I don't care who you are. I don't care how tough you think you are. Nobody wants to go to Seattle. You get to go to Seattle week 1, Thursday Night Football. They get their Super Bowl rings. It's going to be a circus there. Crowd's going to be raucous. They're getting their Super Bowl rings. Everybody's going to be amped. First game of the regular season. And I think you have a shot at winning that game. That's going to tell me a lot about you and your prospects for potentially down the line having to go to Seattle. Even if you don't win the game, I just want to see how well you play. Because I think you got a legitimate shot at winning that game. But I want to see how well you handle that environment. Even if you don't handle it well. It's week 1. You might learn so much about yourself and grow as a football team, see them down the road and beat them down in Seattle come playoff time. Who knows? I'm just saying don't put yourself in that position. Don't have to go to Seattle. That's the easiest way to avoid all of that is don't go back. You got to go in week 1. That's a must. It's optional down the road. Don't go back. Materials needed. AR-12. Boy, Aaron Rodgers is good. And I told you, I'm not hesitant to tell you that he's the best in the league. I will tell you all day long, Aaron Rodgers is my guy. Now, I've heard all the different reports about him not being the greatest leader of men and all. I don't care anything about that, okay? You might not like him. You damn sure will respect what he's doing on the football field. The guy gets it done. And me and AR-12, we go way back. Way back. I'm talking about put her in the vice with Brett Favre way back. When they were putting it in the holster back in the day. I go way back with Aaron to those days when he wasn't even on the field. When Aaron had that Shaggy from Scooby-Doo cut. We go way back. So Aaron's my guy. And nothing makes me smile like Aaron rushing for a touchdown and pulling out the championship belt. I love it. That's my guy. And so Aaron Rodgers, to me, is the best quarterback in the league. And when he's on, when this Packers offense is clicking on all cylinders, it's when Aaron Rodgers is at the top of his game. And Aaron Rodgers, to me, is the best quarterback in this league, hands down, bar none. And I'll take Aaron Rodgers any day over any other quarterback to start the game. Because Aaron Rodgers brings the full package to the field every time he steps on it. And I'm telling you right now, Aaron Rodgers healthy is a bad omen for the rest of the NFC because I actually think this Green Bay Packers team is loaded with talent now. Before, even last season, I didn't know what to expect from the Packers. I just thought they were a solid football team that could do some things, but I wasn't sure about them. Really being able to get over the hump against the 49ers, against the Seattle Seahawks and teams like that. Now I think they're right up there with them, if not better than those teams. Truth be told. And the reason why is because you got a healthy AR-12. How do you want it? How do you want it? In past years, the Packers didn't ask you how you wanted it. You only got it one way, and that was from the passing game. That was from Aaron Rodgers scrambling out of the pocket, making things happen with his legs, throwing darts on the run, sitting in the pocket, eating you alive. They didn't even bother with the running game. It wasn't there. It was non-existent. Now the question is, how do you want it? How do you want your 35 points that we're about to put on your skull? How do you want it? You want some of this run game? Because I can slice up some Eddie Lacy and some James Starks, sprinkle in a little bit of DeJuan Harris. I can feed you some run game. I can feed you some run game if that's what you want. Or you want the passing game? You want Randall Cobb? I can give you some corn on the cob. You want some Jordy Nelson? What about some of the young fellas? You want some of that Devontae juice right there? How do you want it? You want Aaron running on you with his legs? Pump faking and running right by your linebacker? How do you want it? You want some of these tight ends? Richard Rodgers looks legit at tight end. You want some of that? You want some of Andrew Corliss? Huh? How do you want it? Because this Packers offense can give it to you in a multitude of ways. How do you want it? That's the question now. It used to be this passing offense has to get off for the Packers to be successful. Now it's a situation where they're balanced. They can run it. They can throw it. How do you want it? Pick your poison. You figure it out. You let me know. How do you want it? Get your weight up. I'm talking to the defense now. Defense, get your weight up. The success of this team hinges upon your ability to handle your end of the bargain. The offense is going to get it done. As long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy, offense is going to be fine. Trust me. Trust me. Now, Aaron Rodgers can take this team to the playoffs by himself. By his lonesome. He can win 10 games and get this team to the playoffs. That's not the issue, though. We're not looking to make the playoffs. Packers are good enough to make it to the playoffs. They're not a team that will just be happy to get there. They're not the Detroit Lions. They're not the Minnesota Vikings. You know, they're not happy. They're not the Chicago Bears even at this point. They're not just happy to get there. You know, those teams, they'd be lucky to make the postseason. They don't make it every year. One year it's the Vikings. One year it's the Bears. One year the Detroit Lions, they make a cameo. Hey, we're here. And then they leave. The Packers are there every year. So making the playoffs, that won't do. You need to win a Super Bowl. And what is going to get you over the hump and what's going to take you there is Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers and his defense handling their end of the bargain. So, defense, get your weight up. They went out and got you some safety help. That was a position of need and a weakness. Now that looks like a position of strength. If guys stay healthy with Micah Hyde and Clinton Dix and a lot of the guys that you have back there, that's a strong position now with Burnett and company. They can get it done. Corners are solid. The linebacker, I just talked about 11 linebackers that you could be keeping. You got to the quarterback last year. You need to improve upon that this year. You went out and got J. Pep to help with that. Go get it done. Go and get it done defensively. Get your weight up. Northern Explorers. If you're the Green Bay Packers, you've done a wonderful job of going up north and being Northern Explorers and taking care of business on the road or at home. And you need to continue to be Northern Explorers. The ability to be, and you cannot discount this, the ability to be able to go to Minnesota and win, to go to Chicago and come out with a W, to go to Detroit and win, that's paramount. To be able to win in your division, home or away, that's what the elite teams do in their divisions. They're able to go and win no matter where they're at. And the Packers have done that consistently throughout Mike McCarthy's tenure as the head coach. Last year they struggled because of the fact that there was no Aaron Rodgers, but yet they still found a way to win the division. You know, they struggled to win games. They got beat up by Detroit, you know, but they found a way to get it done. And now that Aaron Rodgers is back, I expect you to take full advantage of this division and be Northern Explorers. And last but not least, damn, they're good. I find myself saying that about the teams because to me there's an upper echelon of teams in the league and they're just separate from everybody else, you know, and you know what they do looks nothing like what the rest of the league is doing. You know, Seattle, to me, Green Bay is going to be one of those teams this year. Of course, Denver and New England. You look at them and you say, damn, they're good. You know, nothing that they do looks like what the rest of the league is doing. And I find myself saying that about the Packers often, especially when they're clicking on all cylinders offensively. They make it look so easy, so effortless. And if this defense is anywhere near what I think they can be, I'll find myself saying this throughout the course of this season. Damn, they're good. Damn it, man. Got to be more careful. This Packers team, they're the truth, man. They're gonna wreck some things this year. Teams better look out. Independent variable. Aaron Rodgers in the defense. I basically spoke into this already. Aaron Rodgers, he's good enough to get you to the playoffs. This defense is what's going to help you win a Super Bowl. Remember your Super Bowl season? When you won it all, the offense, they were starting to find their stride, but the defense was the catalyst for that Super Bowl. I think the same recipe and formula need to be enacted for you to win the Super Bowl. You are going to have Aaron Rodgers and his offense playing at a high level, but the defense is going to have to step up. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. Last season, when Aaron Rodgers came back, he had the offense playing at a high enough level to win. You were winning against San Francisco with less than 2 minutes to go in that football game. Guess who couldn't secure the victory? The defense. That's going to be the difference between you losing in wild card weekend, you losing in the divisional round of the postseason, you losing in the NFC Championship game, or you getting to the Super Bowl and having a chance to win it. The defense and Aaron Rodgers are your independent variables. And the Super Bowl is the dependent variable, because getting to the Super Bowl will depend squarely on Aaron Rodgers and the defense's ability to get it done. And that's that. You move on to the constant, and it's the Lambeau leap. And we watch all these penalties and flags be thrown and all of these rules be put in place to stop celebrations. This one seems to stand the test of time. And nobody's calling for the Lambeau leap's head, and it's a tradition like no other. They even have a statue outside of the stadium, you know, where you can go and take a picture doing the Lambeau leap. And it's something that has been consistently good for this league. And I tell you what, if you're an opposing team, you don't want to see the Lambeau leap, because if you're watching the Packers do a Lambeau leap, that just means they scored a touchdown. And I think we're going to see the Lambeau leap an awful lot in 2014. It is definitely a constant for this Green Bay Packers football team. So we get to the conclusion. What does this all mean for the Green Bay Packers? I'm pretty sure you can tell how I feel about this Packers team by the way I've been talking about them this entire time. And I feel like they're one of the front runners to play in a Super Bowl in 2014. You know, and when it's all said and done, I think I know who's going to be left standing when the smoke and the dust settles and clears. In the AFC, I think that's going to be an AFC Championship rematch from a season ago. And in the NFC, I really think that we're going to see a rematch of Week 1 in the NFC Championship game. Now, again, things can happen. Things can change throughout the course of the season. I'm just talking about basically going off of what I've seen throughout the preseason and looking at these rosters and these teams. I just feel like they're going to be the best two teams, that being Seattle and Green Bay. I got this Green Bay team going 14-2. Easily could go 12-4, 13-3, but I just got a really good feeling about this team. I don't see them finishing any worse than 12-4. Okay, 13-3 is probably more realistic, but 14-2 is what I have them going. And this team is legit, man. If they stay healthy and the defense improves upon what they did a season ago, because they got out the teams, they need to force more turnovers defensively, and they need to be more consistent as a defense. But I think with all the changes that they've made, strengthening up the safety position, going out and getting Julius Peppers to help solidify that front seven, I think they're going to be fine. If guys can stay healthy, if Brad Jones doesn't get injured, and you've got guys that are in the lineup that you can trust, A.J. Hawk's around, Clay Matthews is able to stay relatively healthy. He's been banged up the last couple of years. If you just stay healthy, you already saw B.J. Rodgers go down to injury. I think you can find a way to circumvent that injury. But if you can just stay relatively healthy defensively, and this offense doesn't suffer any injuries, if Randall Cobb is able to stay healthy, Eddie Lacy doesn't get injured, and you're able to stay relatively healthy, offensive line stays relatively intact, look out for the Green Bay Packers. Go, Pack, go! You're going to hear that a hell of a lot this season if the Packers are as good as I think they can be. So, that is the 2014 NFL Lab Report of the Green Bay Packers. I thank you for joining me. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Come back and join me tomorrow when we'll wrap up this series with the final two teams, the first of which being the Carolina Panthers. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.